So what is this project? What is this podcast? So a long time ago, I think I was the one that had picked up Mistborn, and I was going through the books, and you had found out about it, and you had already picked up either Mistborn or some other of Brandon Sanderson's books.
Yeah, I was deep into Era 2 in my reading list by this point.
Right, right. And I was like really slow about going about it, and you were telling me like, man, you got to go into, you got to finish it, you got to continue with going on with it. And I drug my feet for a long time, and I got through like book one, and I was pretty happy with it. And I did want to go into the next one, but I had just been used to reading such shorter books. I went through audiobooks, and so Mistborn was like 20 something hours long, and usually I was just going in through like 12 to 15 hour long books. And so I was like, well, I could get through 2 books at that time, but you're like, no. Like, if you think the payoff for a 15-20 hour book is big, then what do you think a payoff for a 45-hour book is going to be? I was like, okay, that's true. And you're like, but you have to read these 6 other books before you get to that book. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll go ahead and go through it. And I think I got through all the other books, the like 500 plus hours.
Oh yeah. So you started the first book. You started Final Empire. I was in Era 2. By the time you finished the second book in the Mistborn Era 1, I was already up to like starting Words of Radiance, and so I was like nearing the end of my journey, and then you caught me
In like
at the end of Oathbringer.
in like 6 weeks, I had gone through like all the books all the way up into it, and I caught up to you in Oathbringer, and then we both went through Rhythm of War.
He listened
together.
to it at 1.7 speed, guys. He kind of cheated because I wasn't at this point, but
True story.
Those books are read kind of slow.
I went through like 12 hours a day. It was like literally like 9 to 12 hours a day. But the thing is that what you were for to me is you gave me the ability to get all the little details out, because I'm okay. I've got good reading comprehension. I have a degree, but I don't catch everything, and I don't catch little details. And you would be like, hey, when you read this book, think about this other book. And it was just subtle things like that, and it would make me catch on to things.
Yeah, like I found that, I'm not big on revisiting content that I've already consumed unless I'm going to share it with somebody else. And so it was really fun for me to kind of, I don't want to say pull the strings, because I don't think I really influenced you. I mean, you didn't even follow my reading order on like how you consume the Cosmere. But I liked to point out these little things because I just really wanted to see like your reaction to things. You're always when we started talking about these, you would get so animated and be like, "Oh my gosh, this happened!" And when I started seeing that, I was like, "Okay, I want to kind of like really like poke at you a bit and give you these little nudges towards things that I missed my first time, but whenever you're reading the Cosmere, you feel really cool when you see the connection.
Right,
you feel great." And so I just tried to do that, little questions here or there, and it became a big thing between us, big enough that you came to me a little bit later and was like, dude, we should just like talk about this.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is that it was nice because when we would go over all of it, I was like, you always kept assuring me like there would be a payoff, and that was something I don't know, I got faith, eventually, but I kept sitting here going like, where did this person come from? Where did that thing go? And you're like, oh, a couple books from now, that's gonna be a huge deal.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I agree with you. I think one of the reasons we decided to start with Mistborn, we'll go over our reading list, in a future episode here, but one of the reasons we decided to start with Mistborn was because I was the same as you. I finished Mistborn, thought it was good, 20-hour long book, 22 hours, whatever it ended up being. Okay, that wasn't too big for me. I watched, I played like D&D, so like
yeah, right.
22 hours was like nothing. But what really got me was when I finished Mistborn, and I went, wow, that was probably the best like payoff I've read in a fantasy book like ever.
Like still, like it's still like it's huge.
And when I saw that, I started looking online, and people were saying like, Mistborn's great and all, but have you heard of the Stormlight Archives? And I was like, wait a second. you're telling me there's going to be, Brandon Sanderson's calling this as epic. And I'm like, okay, so you don't think Mistborn was epic? Okay. Like,
Right.
we're going to go to something greater. But then everyone said, if you want to experience to the fullest, you should read everything else because it's all connected. And I dove straight into the Cosmere. I did a better job at you than avoiding spoilers. But I tried just desperately to figure out, okay, what reading order do I want? Because I want to catch as much as I can. And I agree with you. In the beginning, it was a little hard to have faith, but after I finished Mistborn, I was all in, and I just kept trying to tell you, just trust me. Just trust me. He's always going to have your back. It's always going to have a payoff. I've not been disappointed once in any of his books.
And like you said, I got so excited that I kept spoiling everything for me because I would look up something, like a little something, like, hey, is that really from this previous thing? And without asking you, I'd go look it up and I'm like, oh, crap. This is not only is an important thing in this book, it's an important thing in the book that you're going to read next. And I was like,
Yeah, the Cosmere, I applaud everyone in the background, who runs like Coppermind and the 17th Shard, these people who are able to like put together all this information in a free way for people to access. But one thing y'all need to work on is spoiler control, okay? Because it just it runs rampant.
It's really difficult, and it's a fantastic resource after you've read everything. Yeah. But it's really challenging when, if you haven't read everything, but you're kind of curious about something. And so one of the things that you were for me is you were in a non-spoiler way, able to really like kind of help me, guide me into like seeing some things. And as a result, I saw things that you had missed because, I was going into it and being like, hey, remember this came up? And you're like, wait, what? What do you mean like that came up in that part of the book? And I was like, oh yeah, they're mentioning something. And you're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that the first time reading it.
I mean, like still now, like we still, before we hit record on a couple of these things, we still have talks every once in a while and we beat ourselves up, record. but like even now you'll mention things. I'll be like, man, really? That's another thing I didn't know.
Right. And the thing is that that's what I wanted to be able to be and be able to introduce to other people. I wanted people to be able to go through the Cosmere, have a place where they can have a non-spoiler way to be able to, experience this, see the details, and really, really get all the little pieces that kind of fall into place. Now, if you're someone who like loves to just reread, that's great. I'm not that person. We're having fun rereading Mistborn right now. That's super cool. And hopefully, everyone gets to join us with that. But I wanted to be able to be like, hey, whenever you read this chapter, think about, this thing. Just think about that while you're reading it. And be able to be like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this kind of like play out. But also be something that we can look at and say, hey, did I hear that named? Isn't that the name from someone from such and such thing? And it'd be like, yep, that's you're exactly right. But I'm not going to tell you the rest of it. You need to keep on. You need to RAFO. You need to read and find out.
Yeah, for sure. So the thing that like drew me to this project when you first mentioned it was the idea of I love the books. I experienced them. They were great. And I would argue though that experiencing them again with you made it 10 times better. It was even better than the original time I read it, which kind of surprised me, right? Like normally when you think of a series, everyone says, I wish I could forget it so I could experience it again. And I was like, well, like that doesn't bother me as much. Just being able to experience it again with another person, being able to like just share the emotion, share the excitement, like how many times have you nerded out about something that you found interesting and then all your friends went, yeah, whatever. Because it wasn't something they were into. Well, like this project, that's us. That can be us for all of our listeners, anyone who tunes in. We can be the people that you if you don't have anyone else that is into the books yet, we can be the people you can share that with. So I think it's a good idea now to kind of talk about what can people expect here. I think we both agree that we're going to go ahead and try to do full-on book reviews chapter by chapter, and we're going to try to release those Monday through Friday every single week.
Every single week, we're going to go, chapter by chapter. We have a reading list. In a future episode, we're going to talk about the list that we're going to go through. Where our timeline is going to be. We're going to start out with Mistborn, and as we're going through it, it's going to be in a very like non-spoilerly way. We're going to go through all the details of what's going on and rehashing it.
Yeah, it's going to be what's on the page. We're not going to go off of it. We're not going to, at least in these reviews, not even really point out the Cosmere connections or anything like that. That's going to be reserved for another episode that we're going to kind of like tentatively name it right now, like timeline spoilers, where essentially we're going to point out every single connection that we have. We're going to try to point out every single connection that we have, like up to the point where we read. So like if we're in book D, we're going to say, all right, this episode, we're going to be able to talk about everything from book A, B, and C and how it connects to D.
Right. And so what we're going to try to do is we're going to offer things for people who have read all of the Cosmere, people who have read the book, people who've read, absolutely nothing but the first sentence, or people who've only read the back cover, or people who are only listening to this podcast and never heard of Brandon Sanderson. We're going to have everything for that. And it's all going to be very clearly marked, very clearly set up so that we can say, hey, if you want to recap something, maybe you're going to want to recap things for when the latest book is going to come out, that we have things set up for that. If you are, following along with us on the reading through whatever chapters are gone, we have all that set up. If you're following us through our whole reading list, we have that set up. So we have, pretty much everything set up for, any level that you want to go into. And like you said, we're going to do Monday through Friday. And I think on Sunday or so, we'll likely do spoiler episodes and keep up with the timeline. And our current timeline we have set up, we should be all the way through the current Cosmere novels and novellas, all the way up until we get up to Stormlight 5, and we should be finishing up Rhythm of War by the time Stormlight 5 comes out.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough goal to reach, but that is the plan right now. Is we got a little bit of time to get through essentially the entire Cosmere, at least on that chapter review basis, to reach Stormlight 5. And I think that's going to be awesome. And like you said, we're going to try to guarantee 5 episodes a week. We'll promise 5 episodes a week. We're really going to try for that 7 episodes. There's just so much to talk about.
There is so much. Fun. I mean, we're already, we've already got started on doing this stuff, and we're finding just so much to be able to go over. There's so many little details to really come over. And that's what's so exciting about this universe. And there's so many mysteries that still exist, and we're going to be there for people who are, jumping in on this timeline. We're going to be able to be there to be able to say, hey, these still come up, and if we do get a reveal in later books that we're going to be around to be able to share that experience with them as well.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, I'm just going to say it one more time for everyone because this was a big problem that Mac here ran into. We will do everything we can for spoiler protection. The chapter by chapter reviews, you can listen to those confident that we are not going to give anything away in its connection to the Cosmere. Come read with us, come read along, come recap whatever that is. But you will know at the start of every single episode, you will know kind of what level of spoiler we're going to have at that point. That way you can opt in if you want to do it.
Well, and one thing this is something that is kind of in my beta right now. One project I am working on is setting up a website where people can actually be able to look at certain things and follow along with us. Because one of the things I like to have, and this is because I have a really bad imagination, is I love to see like fan art or like art of how characters look or how things, happen to look up. There's great art that goes with the books, and you can actually find those on Brandon Sanderson's website, and we'll make sure that people are linked onto those. But one of my beta projects that I'm trying to work on is to where we'll keep an ear out for if this actually comes to fruition, where people actually will be able to go look and say, up to these chapters, what did this character kind of look like? What did this kind of set up? And that way you don't have to worry about, going onto Coppermind and having just the Google search line saying, oh, they were actually this person all along. And oh no.
Yeah. Even like you would like, I looked up an image.
That's all it was. I just wanted to see a picture and the picture ruined it.
I just wanted to see one character. Yeah. So, I mean, this is exciting. We have so much to come, and we hope that y'all join us, y'all take us, Hey guys, Vod here. Thanks for listening to the Ontos podcast. You'll start to see regularly scheduled episodes starting November 14th, 2022. And if you'd really like to follow us, please consider subscribing. We're a very small project, so please support us with likes and comments. You can because that's what the algorithm craves. If you're listening on the YouTube channel, please hit the notification bell. And if you want to really give us a boost, consider supporting us on Patreon, because I really need to better my